Well, good morning. I'm getting ready to head out to go camping a little bit next couple of days, but thought I would make this little short video on February 10th because that's kind of an interesting day in my life. February 10th, 1973 was a Saturday, and I was 15 years old. And that night I was attacked and bit by a black bear while I was out camping. Not a real fun experience, but stick around and I'll tell you about it. It's good to know kind of what to do and what to expect. Anyway, if you haven't done so, please subscribe and like and ring the bell, and you'll hear all kinds of new stuff I'm going to put up soon. But anyway, my journey back in 1973. So to continue my story, February 10th, 1973, I was a freshman in high school and pretty average 15-year-old, and we had scheduled a Boy Scout outing to Little Jimmy Campground, which is not too far from Mount Baden-powell over by Wrightwood. And there was about 17 of us or so that went. I had recently got a new sleeping bag, a U.S. Army surplus chicken feathered special sleeping bag at the local outfitters. We got a lot of our camping stuff there. And anyway, we left this Saturday to head up to Little Jimmy Camp, and it was about a 4-mile hike in. And I pitched my tube tent. If you're not familiar with tube tents, I'll put a picture down. And set everything up. You attach one rope to one tree and another rope to a pole or another tree. I think I had it attached to 2 trees, kind of a triangular shape. And long story short, this campground had picnic tables. It was a little messy. We hadn't heard anything about bears, but went to bed about 9 o'clock, laid down on my back, rested. We had just got done cleaning up dinner. We had pots on the table next to me turned over, and everything that we did was pretty clean. I don't remember having any food or anything nearby me, but I fell asleep, and all was good with the world, and probably dreaming well. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard something hit the pots on the table, and they seemed to knock them off kind of forcefully. And then I heard kind of some grunting and some rumbling around, and it didn't quite hit me yet that was a bear. But then I felt something hit my tent, and I flipped over on my stomach, and it continued to kind of root around in my tent. Maybe stuck his nose in or something, I don't know. But I put my hands kind of instinctively over my head at the time, kind of like this, both of them. And not too much later, I felt some pressure on my right wrist and some chomping, kind of like you would if you played with your dog and they kind of got you a little bit. Except this was a lot bigger than a dog. Anyway, eventually I could feel some more chomping, and I tried to scream, but I couldn't. I was just too scared. So I eventually felt his large canine teeth sinking into my wrist, about that long. And as he chomped down, I kind of felt the roof of his mouth, which was not something you want to feel at 2 o'clock in the morning. I was barely able to get a sound out, and as soon as the bear realized, that there was actually something in this chicken feather bag, and that's, I think, what he was really going after, was the smell of the chicken feathers that was probably left over from Korean War or maybe Vietnam, I don't know. But anyway, so I screamed, he left, tore the head off my sleeping bag, feathers everywhere. I eventually got the attention of some people in camp, some Boy Scout leaders, and they came over and helped me up and out, although I wasn't injured that badly. My wrist was bleeding. We built up the fire and stayed by the fire most of the rest of the night, except the bear came back at 4 o'clock, which was not good. But this time we were kind of ready, and people were banging pots and were loud, and the bear ran off. And again at 7 a.m., a little cub came through camp, and somebody's dog kind of ran him off. But, you know, it was just kind of a combination of maybe a camp bear that was used to eating people food, and he smelled this really yummy bag, but he didn't know anything was in it, and when he got into it, it screamed back, and so that was not good. But it was an interesting experience all in all. It's a bit scary. For the next 6 months, I was really scared of big dogs. Anytime I go by a Great Dane or something, I would really jump, kind of a PTSD type of moment. But we finally left there on that Sunday, hiked out. I just had kind of my wrist bandage. Got back home, decided to go to the hospital and get it checked out, and nothing was broken. It was kind of bruised, and got a bandage on that. But, you know, when you're 15 and you get bit by a bear, it's, you know, good for stories and for the, you know, your social life a little bit. I went to church that night, and everybody was like, "Ooh, wow, tell us what happened," you know, and that worked out for the next week or so, and then people kind of forgot about it. But I've had some experiences with bears after that, but nothing to that extent. And, you know, they really, I don't think, are there to hurt you. Those that are just campground bears, and they're probably not long for this world. We did report it to the local Forest Service and the Angeles National Forest, and they said there was one other attack in the last 50 years, so it doesn't happen very often. As I, you know, tell you a couple other stories here that I've heard about some recent things that happened. But anyway, so that happened 52 years ago, and every time I come out to camp, you know, I look around and check for, you know, bear poop, and clean campground and ask if there's any bears around. You know, if you have the opportunity to put your food in a bear, you know, can, do it. It just saves a lot of stress. But anyway, we're here tonight at Tugman State Park just to camp in 28-degree weather and make sure my stuff is all good to go for the Appalachian Trail here in another 3 weeks. But don't worry about bears too much. Now, other than my little adventures with bears, I did run into a young lady last summer on the John Muir Trail in Bubbs Creek, and we were talking about bears. And she said she was in her hammock at Vermilion Valley Ranch, VVR, and about asleep, and a bear came over and grabbed her sleeping bag with her in it and pulled them off onto the ground. She screamed, the bear left. But that seemed, you know, that would kind of stunt your growth, I would think. But she was no worse the wear for it, but, you know, apparently didn't have anything in her sleeping bag. It just must have smelled good. So I've had another notable bear experience, but I didn't get bit. Just got run out of camp. When I was 22, this is probably about 7 years later after my bear chomp, a friend and I were hiking up in the Trinity Alps while we were going to school at Humboldt State University, and we had walked in about, well, I don't know, 10 miles up the North Fork of the Salmon River and up at Summit Lake, somewhere up around tree line, above tree line. We got into camp and noticed these bears up on the hill, way up on the hill above timberline, and pitched camp, and all was good till about 10 o'clock at night. And then these bears come down and want to make friends, and they were getting kind of cheeky. They were getting kind of like 30 feet away from the fire. We had built up the fire and got extra firewood just because, you know, we knew that fire would get rid of bears, but they'd keep coming in and keep coming in. We banged pots, we did everything possible, and they would not leave us alone. And finally, about midnight, you know, they kind of got within like 10 feet of the fire, and we realized we're not going to sleep tonight because these guys are just being bad. So we made a decision to hike out. It was a full moon. We walked out all the way back to the trailhead at night from 10 miles out, which took us most of the rest of the night. And about 2 miles down the trail, we took a step, and this bush erupted to the left of me that this bear apparently was in. And when a large bear gets scared and decides to leave the bush they're in, one, it's very noisy and it's very unsettling to your heart. So it took us a strafing run for about a half a mile in the pitch black dark with just flashlights going down the trail until we realized that, okay, we're probably okay again. But we got back to the car, took a little bit of nap because it was now dawn. We were pretty tired with no sleep, especially after hiking 10 miles the day before and then 10 miles out that night. Went to the ranger station nearby, and the ranger kind of rolled his eyes and said, oh yeah, those bears were trapped in Yosemite and were transported up here so they could live out their life being camp bears, I guess, because that's what they were. They wouldn't leave like a normal wild bear. You bang pots on a wild bear, raise your voice, they're going to leave. But these guys didn't. They were Yosemite bears. I don't know what they did with them, or at least they could have posted a sign. That would have been helpful. But that was my encounter with camp bears. Another encounter with camp bears that I learned about was a gentleman that was camped in the backpacker campground near Tuolumne Meadows up in Yosemite. He was apparently going to hike out the next day and start his Sobo John Muir Trail experience, but he went to the store and got back and failed to put all of his food in a bear box and decided to take a Snickers bar to bed with him. Later that night, he had a nighttime visitor. The bear tore open his tent, smelling said Snickers bar, took him out in his sleeping bag, eventually grabbed the sleeping bag by the foot box, drug him around for a while until, you know, feathers and things were, he was screaming. He eventually got out of his sleeping bag, which was now all ripped up like his tent, and people were kind of pointing and kind of wondering what was going on. Then later it was discovered that he had a Snickers bar in the bottom of his sleeping bag that he was going to eat later at night. Well, I'm sure the bear probably got that, but anyway, most of the people around there, once they found that out, he just kind of had a laugh and mostly called him an idiot, because that's one thing you don't do is keep food in your surroundings, your tent, your sleeping bag. You know, you may do that if you're camping on the beach, but you know, he wasn't on the beach. He was in prime bear country. So anyway, it probably took him a while to replace his Durston tent and, you know, get a sleeping bag fixed. Not to mention what that probably did to his psyche and his reputation. But anyway, don't do that. Just get out in the forest, and if you think you're in bear country or anywhere else, just have a little chat with bears. So if you happen to be in an area where you might think bears might be, where the plants are, you know, shoulder height, like in a blueberry forest, you might just talk to the bears and get their attention. Hey bear, hey bear. Just raise your voice a little bit, and if they're there, they'll raise their head up, and you know, they'll let you know they're there. They'll probably go running off, and if they have a little baby bear with them, usually the babies will tree themselves, and you have to wait for them to come down and mama to come get them and leave, but they usually will. They won't usually come after you down the trail, which is what people think. You know, oftentimes bear spray will just piss them off. So if you haven't read directions on your bear spray can, you might want to look at that. It'll spray for 30 feet, but you got about one shot at it before they get pissed off. But just talk to them, and then if you have to wait an extra 30 seconds for them to leave, so be it. It's a cool experience being with a bear, as long as they're not biting you. Anyway, I'll keep going here. Have a good day. You know, one of the reasons for hiking the AT is just peace of mind to get out. You know, I mean, it's tough when you're out at night and it's freezing and it's like, you know, less than 30 degrees and there's snow and ice everywhere. But tonight's a pretty calm night here, so I can just kind of relax. Kind of close to the road here, a little traffic, but it's restful. Legs aren't tired. Didn't hike very far today. Go farther tomorrow, but you know, shouldn't be any bears here. This place hasn't seen a bear in a long time, so not going to worry so much about food. The ursack will take care of that. Haven't seen any chipmunks or little critters here except one little bird who seems to be persistent, but that's okay. But eager to try out sleeping bag. It's supposed to get down to 28 or 29 degrees tonight, so, and I'm not in a big hurry in the morning, so I'll get out of here when it warms up. I got about 4 or 5 miles to go tomorrow. Just something easy, make sure everything works, and see what I forgot and see what I would need and what I don't need. Then I'll start packing, you know, with a little bit more emphasis on taking less stuff. So we'll see. Anyway, have a good night. Thanks for coming. If you haven't done so yet, just please subscribe, ring the bell, and, you know, click the like. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming along.